Hello, and welcome to the Sugar Bell Review, a program dedicated to learning about the people, places, and policies that make up the Bellbrook Sugar Creek community. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Tonight, we have the pleasure of being joined by Desiree Tims. Thank you so much for coming in. You are the candidate that is currently running against Mike Turner for the District 10 Federal House of Representatives, correct?
That is correct. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here to talk a little bit more about why this election matters, why it's important, why I'm running, and the plans I have for our community.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. Could you start a little bit more closer to home? Are you a local? Have you been a local forever?
Yeah.
How did you?
How did I get here?
Mm-hmm.
How did I do this crazy thing?
Let's start at the beginning.
So I am born and raised in West Dayton. I am the granddaughter of sharecroppers. My grandfather was a sharecropper in the Deep South, and he picked cotton as a little boy. And at the age of 6, he was forced to drop out of school to continue picking cotton to contribute to household expenses. Mm-hmm. And when he turned 17, he got on a train and moved to Middletown, Ohio, and rented a room from my great-grandfather.
I see where this is going.
And landed a job working in the steel mills and factories. He was able to climb his way to the middle class, but always was regretful that he was unable to go all the way with his education, and encouraged and inspired me to just go. And I graduated from Dunbar High School and later became the first in my family to graduate four-year college. Cool. I went to Xavier down in Cincinnati. And during that time, met a man named Barack Obama. You may have heard of him before.
Just a few times.
And I was a volunteer on the campaign and knocked doors and organized people to vote for him.
That must have been an incredible experience.
It was life-changing. I had no interest in politics.
Up until that point?
Even then, I just wanted to work to get him elected so that we can bring some change back into our community, right? That's when, at the time when all of the jobs were leaving our area after the recession. People who were my age, graduating from college, not finding a job, working in Dayton Mall, working at Fairfield Commons with a college degree. And lots of debt to match that degree, right?
A lot of debt, yes.
And I said, no, that is not going to be my story, because that is not how it's supposed to work. You know, my grandfather was able to climb his way to the middle class with a 6-year-old first grade education, and people have graduate degrees and they can't climb their way to the middle class.
They can't even get out of the mall.
They can't.
Yeah.
And it was something that really struck me. And so I knocked doors and worked really hard, later joined the Obama administration and spent time working for Obama and later Sherrod Brown, and decided to go to law school. I worked my way through law school. I went to law school at night, graduated from Georgetown Law.
Nice.
And
that's amazing. Congrats.
Thank you. It was a lot of work.
Yeah, you can imagine.
But I was ready to come home. The Obama administration had come to an end, and here I am, and we're at this moment again where jobs are leaving because of the economic downturn, and we're fighting this invisible enemy called coronavirus, and our community has to come together, and it's time for change. It's time for energy. It's time for new ideas, and I believe that I'm that person. So I'm running to represent my hometown community. I'm just a hometown girl trying to change the world, one person at a time.
Yeah. So if you're elected, I know most people go into politics with certain things that are near and dear to their hearts. That, these are the things that I want to make the greatest impact on. If I can get to a point in a position that gives me the ability to, what would you say some of those things are for you? Those elements that you're just like, if I can make a change here, I really, really want to.
Yeah. So we have to end gun violence, right? We have to ensure that we're passing universal background checks. That's something 90% of Americans, people right here in Ohio, agree with. Pass a background check. Make sure someone doesn't have a violent criminal history before we put a gun in their hand. And it's not just about them harming other people. It's about them harming themselves. Suicide is one of the highest leading causes from guns, right? It's one of the leading causes for the death of children. I talk to so many pediatricians they accidentally get a hold of the gun, it's not stored safely, or someone has a gun who shouldn't have one. We have to end the gun violence. I tell people all the time, I am 32. I am not that old. However, when I was in school, we did not prepare for active shooter drills. We prepare for tornadoes, stop, drop, and roll, put your hands behind your neck. You know, we are preparing our babies. We are mentally training them to prepare for someone to walk into your classroom and start shooting.
So I know there's a lot of they're after your guns. I'm assuming that does not sound like the conversation we're having here. It sounds more like common sense changes to ensure safety.
Common sense gun solutions, something that majority of the people in this district and the country agree with. And frankly, it's something we can get done. My opponent has voted against it time and time again, has come out against universal background checks even after the mass shooting happened in the Oregon district, and has taken tens of thousands of dollars from the NRA. We need someone who's going to take their money from the people, who will listen to the people, who will fight for the people. So that remains top of my list. The other cool thing I learned is that the Dayton-Kettering Metropolitan Statistical Area is one of 5 labor markets in the whole country with the most science and engineering grads.
Wow, that's a really
But we are not one of 5 labor markets in the country with the most science and engineering jobs.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we need to ensure that we have people who are graduating and they're able to get a job to pay off that degree, to pay down that student loan debt, and to make sure they can climb their way to the middle class. We shouldn't graduate the amazing talent that we have here at Wright State and UD and Central State and Sinclair. They shouldn't have to find jobs in Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, they shouldn't have to look outside of the state.
Here. We want them to stay here. And so I tell people all the time, we are not a nation that is idea deficit. We have a lot of great ideas, but we don't have a lot of people in Congress and in positions of leadership who are executing, who are leading, who have courage to bring those ideas to fruition. So we want to make sure that this is one of the top 5 labor markets in the country, not only for the workforce, but for the jobs and opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's something I will continue to fight for. We want high-speed rail and light rail here in our community.
Oh,
and we want to build them, right? We want people to build the cars here.
Yeah.
We have to rebuild our country.
It would be amazing to have more mass transit, for sure.
Yeah.
That would be.
But we can do it. I know so many people who are good with their hands. Right here, we can build the train cars, we can build the railways, we can create the science and technology and logistics behind it. We have the talent.
Well, this is the area that birthed flight.
Area.
I mean, it's right.
We invented the airplane.
It seems like it would make sense for us to be sort of central to the whole idea of, going back to that concept of connecting the country via training or trains, but doing it in a more 20th century or 21st century way, right?
Exactly. Led by us right here in the Miami Valley.
That would be super exciting.
That's right. We need those jobs.
And you're right. I didn't realize that we had a lot of people graduating with science and technology degrees, but then having to leave the area in order to get hired. That seems backwards.
And we have Wright Pat Air Force Base. It is like the biggest anchor and opportunity one community could ask for to build off of that industry into cybersecurity and engineering and training and light rail. And it's a golden opportunity that we can become sort of the golden nugget of the Midwest. And that's what I'm going to fight for.
Given the 70-75 corridor, it really is a good central location.
This is it. We're going to rebuild America right here. We're going to build back better.
I am totally down for that. Now, I am curious, just for my own interest, because it's such a hot button topic in my location, in our location here in Bellbrook Sugar Creek. What are your feelings on education?
Yes, so I share my personal story, my personal journey through the education process. So I said I am the first in my family to attend and graduate four-year college, but it was not easy. I attended Dunbar High School. I am a proud product of Dayton Public Schools. However, I recognize that there is a difference and a gap in investment in our public schools. And unfortunately, in the 10th grade, one of my history teachers shared with me that I had the same textbook as his daughter, who was attending 5th grade in Kettering.
Wow.
And that stings.
Yeah.
And it showed up in college. My first year, myself, a few of my classmates from Eastern Ohio and Eastern Kentucky, we were all struggling.
Just unprepared for it.
We were unprepared. And it's because the federal government has not lived up to Brown v. Board of Education. Our schools are not equal. School districts defer in terms of resources and material and the curricula. And we have to make sure that every child, regardless of your zip code, that you have access to the resources and information you need so that you can be successful, whether you want to go to college or trade school.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that we're creating productive citizens for society, and it's going to require some investment.
Yeah.
And it starts at the top, because our state and local governments do not often have, especially money now, right, in the era of COVID, to pull resources together to do a job that frankly is a gap that is blank because of federal government's inaction. We need to make sure we have someone who's pro-education, leading our Secretary, Department of Education. We have to make sure there are people there
pro-public education.
Pro-public. Because we have to make sure that students who attend public schools have just as much of a chance as students who are attending private schools or boarding schools.
Yeah, in our area, it does seem to be that the cost of education seems to the buck gets passed down. The federal government says you have to do these things, but we're not giving you money for it. And then the state says you have to do these things, but we're not giving you money for it. And so you're left with that property tax, and you're talking about the area.
And then it falls on the people, right? And the people are like, oh my God.
And some communities have the resources, but don't necessarily want to spend them. And other communities just don't have the resources.
They don't have the resources.
No.
Some people can't afford it.
Yeah.
So that's why we pay taxes. It comes out of our check every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's supposed to work for us. And it hasn't been. The 1%, they've been able to thrive in this economy. But the vast majority of the American people are just trying to survive.
It has definitely become very clear how most of us are living anymore.
Yeah.
No, we really appreciate you taking the time to come join us this evening in little Bellbrook, Sugar Creek. I know we're a small part of your district, but hopefully just as much a part of your district as everyone else.
I have a secret store that I go to all the time, so I'm always in this district, whether people recognize me or not, in my mask.
I love your mask.
Getting all of my shopping done. No, I love this community. I have a lot of friends and supporters in the community, and I am just so appreciative of the women and the people who have stood with me throughout this very difficult and unique journey of running a campaign during COVID.
It has definitely changed how people do everything.
But we will get through it. We are a strong and resilient community. We always come together, and we always survive, and we always come out on top. And I am proud of that. That's who we are, and that's who we will continue to be.
I look forward to seeing the results in November. It should be an interesting ride when we get there.
Thank you.
But we are glad you could join us, and we hope everything goes successfully for you in the future. And regardless of the election results, we really appreciate the time that you have put into the community by running, if nothing else.
Thank you.
So you have a wonderful evening. And everyone out there, we hope you have a wonderful evening. We hope you had an interesting time listening to Desiree Tims, one of our candidates coming up on the November 3rd election. She will be running against Mike Turner. And you now have at least a little bit more information on which you can make your decision.